Hello everyone. Welcome to a little bit of a different video today to start us off. So for those who have been paying attention, we've been doing for the past few months Peralta's Played, which is a series where I discuss the games I've played within a given month. But as you guys know, also I've been having some computer issues, so I didn't get to do, was it March now? Yeah, March. And obviously it's April's done now as well. So this is kind of a double whammy. This is March and April, and to make it quick, to get it done quicker, to get it done right, but also, you know, in a timely fashion, I thought I would do a Peralta's Played live. See how that feels, see what that looks like, see if you guys enjoy that, maybe even more than the original version. Maybe you guys would enjoy it as kind of something we look back on here on Twitch, and then YouTube you get to watch it too, but you get to watch it in this format where it's kind of live, it's real, it's just going, it just happens. And if I stumble on my words, so be it. If I don't, great. It actually cuts out the editing process for me too. So if you guys do like this, let me know. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to start this video up, and first on the list we have Split Fiction. Now, my notes are all over the place because this is not the order I had them in initially, but I am going by the time order of when they actually were released. So let's have that start and play. I'll jump us halfway through so you get a little bit of an idea of what's going on in that game. Oh, that's an ad. That's an ad. That's funny. We're going to keep that in. NordVPN, you got a free ad out of this. Okay, right. There we go. So there's me playing. 1 second. Let me make sure that that quality is on a good quality. We don't want to look ass in our gameplay. Oh, and NordVPN's come back on. Brilliant. This is going great. This is going great, but this is the type of content you guys love, right? Me messing up. Right, so here we go. That is Split Fiction. Now, let me have a look at my notes for Split Fiction, and let's discuss it. So, Split Fiction I played with Tater, and it ended up being we played about 4 streams. It was 4 streams in total. There were different varying lengths, but about 13 hours across the entirety. And in those games, we had some really good fun. I'm going to read out kind of what I wrote down, and then we'll kind of maybe discuss it more, or maybe not, depending on how I feel about it. So, an incredibly innovative. Let's start that again. An incredibly innovative game. Every level was a delight and was fun, even when you were struggling with a puzzle, a jump, or otherwise. Some of the levels were so mind-bending that I'd want to play again, which isn't typical for me, just to experience them as the other character. So I played as, this is a bad example because this was like the first stream, I believe, but I played as Zoe. So I was on the right, and Tater played as Mio. I would be interested to go back and play as Mio, just to get it's a different game essentially. It's the same story, of course, but it's a different game in a sense, right? So that's kind of my first point. The second point, the constant introduction of new mechanics and eventual callback to them as the story continued meant you always felt like you were learning and moving forward, which paired nicely with the story of the game. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty straightforward to the point. Like, I actually really enjoyed the fact that there was callbacks throughout the game to things you'd done prior, and you kind of built your skill set as you went, and it was kind of like, it was narrative. The narrative was important to that, so that was really cool. The story itself is an interesting one. Mio and Zoe's story are for the most part easy to telegraph, but that doesn't make the whole story moot. The idea of AI taking over from genuine writing is an incredibly important topic right now, especially in the gaming sphere, and tackling that head on, as well as suggesting the same is true for other industries, right? There's like Zoe and Mio. It really did hit home for me as someone who aspires to be published himself one day. Like I do. I would love to write a book one day. I've never actually sat down and got like to more than the first chapter of a book. Like even the premises that I've had haven't got that far. I've had bigger premises, but they've never got that far. But it's really nice to see that a story is kind of based on that idea of, you know, that might not even be an option 10 years down the line if AI has its way. So in that way, you know, very important. This is truly one of my favorite games in the last few years at least, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's looking for a game to play with a spouse or friend. Definitely a fun game. Even when you're failing, you're having fun, and I think that's like one of the best things a game can do. If you're struggling at a boss, or you're struggling in a game and you can still enjoy it, like everything else falls away, in my opinion. So that was Split Fiction. That is Split Fiction. And I really did enjoy it. Like, definitely one of the breakout games of this year. Like, there's a few breakout games on this list, but that was like brilliant. I loved it. I loved every second of it. So that was Split Fiction. On to the next, we had Eternal Strands after this advert from American Express. Oh god, I should have made this better, but that's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Right, we are going to now look for, let's get first of all to a bit of, halfway through the video, that'll do. Eternal Strands, or as I called it, Eternal Stand. You guys will see why shortly when I start reading through it. There we are. So, Eternal Strands, one video, played for an hour and 15 minutes, which kind of gives you an idea. I usually do a 2-hour stream, so it gives you an idea of why I felt about this game a little bit from the off. But it looked great. The game was incredibly pretty, and the character designs were interesting. I mean, you guys can see, I'm pointing over there. That's where it's on my end, but there, you can see it. Looks really cool. Character-wise, and yeah, I did think that the characters looked great. Not only the protagonist, but the supporting cast too. It's clear that there was a lot of work put into getting the style just right, and I do agree with that. I think it was actually a very pretty game, and that's what pulled me in initially. I might even say about that later on, but it did. The screenshots of the game looked really bright, really exciting. It looked like a really cool, like fantasy adventure, essentially. Other than that, however, I didn't find the game overly compelling. Combat was fairly standard, and sometimes enemies were unduly annoying. Cutscenes equated to a whole lot of voice text, like it's happening here, with little going on as the characters were also PNGs, which is a little hard to swallow when there's a 3D world you return to right afterwards. You're in this 3D world, and the dialogue's all like this. And I didn't love that myself for this one. There's other games that do it kind of well, because like the characters will change position, or they'll look shocked, or this was very, very static to me, and I didn't love it. The setting also seemed pretty typical too. Your usual fantasy trappings dressed up behind the concept of weaving, which is just a fancy way of saying magic user. And you know what? I was thinking about this when I was playing a game later on this list, but I'll kind of bring it up now because I think it's important. Clair Obscur. Clair Obscur does the kind of same idea, but with the idea of painting and Clair Obscur painting, gradient attacks, all that type of stuff. But Clair does it in a way that the paintress is part of this epic mythos, and you're like working to uncover it. This here felt like it was just tacked on, at least to me. That might be a bit of a mean thing to say. I don't know. But, you're not going to like every game. It's just the way it is. So that is Eternal Strands, that part. Is there any more I said on that? No, that was all I said on Eternal Strands, because this was from the beginning of March. So it's been a while since I wrote this. But yeah, I didn't love this game. I left it after that time, and I think I kind of moved on swiftly. I probably won't think about Eternal Strands, at least not anytime soon, and definitely not to return to. But yeah, I did. I thought it was quaint, but it wasn't the game I was looking for at that time. So, sometimes that happens. Next game, we have Final Fantasy. Oh, we have Call of Dragons first. Sorry, another ad. I hope you guys pay me for this. I'm kidding, of course. So, we'll jump to there. Okay, that'll do. And in this one, we have Final Fantasy VIII. So I've been playing a few of the Final Fantasy games more, but actually I think I discussed this in the thing, so let me find what I said about Final Fantasy VIII. Okay, so we did 2 videos, 2 hours, 30 minutes played. Firstly, I'm a big fan of certain FFs and generally thus a fan of the franchise, but I do struggle with turn-based games, and that kind of comes up again with Clair Obscur later on, but we'll leave that for now. Depending on how they're dressed, the game funnily tries to take turn-based and make it somewhat real-time too, and the mix of both threw me off. Again, very interesting that comes up, because Clair Obscur did something somewhat similar. I didn't like VIII's version of it. Didn't like that real-time element that they tried to do. So, sorry, VIII. Sorry. You're an old game now, it's anyway. It's fine. The story seems like one that takes a while to get going, as I felt I really knew very little, even after a good 2 hours 30 of play. There's a war and kids are being drafted. About summed up what I learned. I know next to nothing about Squall in the same time period. Yeah, I want to know about my character by that point. I want, like, 2 hours 30 minutes in, I should know what my character's motivations are, what the world's going to be doing. Like, for example, again, I know I'm talking about Clair Obscur a lot. It's on my mind at the moment, firstly, but also because I think it does it really well. You learn a lot about the world, and it's still not given to you. Everything's not given to you on a plate in the first hour. They give you a whole area to go through and kind of learn about this world, and you still don't learn everything, but you learn a good bit. Like, this game does not do that for me. Like, I didn't know anything. I knew that they were out of school, I knew that they were going to war, and like I didn't know anything about Squall, what was going on. Like, that the first cutscene in the game is like a fever dream. It reminded me of that first cutscene of Far Cry, the first Far Cry, where it's just like this wild action scene. There's just loads of things happening. You're like, what did I just watch? That's where I'm at with it. The combat system also heavily confused me with the GFs and junctioning and drawing at first. I feel like I got a hang of some of it by the end of the stream, but not much at all in reality. I feel sometimes FF makes combat more complex than it needs to be. There was far too many menus for me in this instance. So that's where I was with that one. How do I put it? I'm a type of person who, like, I don't love to min-max in a game. Like, I don't love to go through and pick exactly the right skill to go in exactly the right order. And I'm finding this with Claire Obscure, actually, as well. And again, sorry, I'm bringing up the game again, but they're very similar. They've got similar things. I'm finding that with Claire as well. And yeah, I want to kind of be able to do generally well without having to worry too much about what's going on in the game, if that makes sense. So that's where like I don't want to worry about stats all the way through. I want to play my game. I want to play my game. I want to know that what I'm equipping is better than what I've got on, and then I want to move on, right? Well, generally speaking, that's me. I feel like I feel like there should always be a middle ground of, like, yeah, you want to, I think you should always be able to go in and really min-max. I think it's so cool when you see people who play these games and they like really min-max and they can do like 1,000,000 damage on a boss. Like, that is cool, right? Yeah, that's really cool. I haven't got the patience for that. I haven't got the interest in that. My interest is with the story. My interest's with playing, like, the game, the feel of the game. And so I'm not that big on it. So I didn't like how technical this was. Graphics of the remastered version of the game was serviceable. Let me try that again. Graphics of the remastered version of the game were serviceable, but I could honestly see this game doing well with the FF7 treatment. I think some people would disagree, but now that we've had Claire Obscure, could you kind of see something like that? Like a Claire Obscure-esque FF8? Don't know why that took me so long to get out, but there you go. Even though it's a little less loved by the general populace, I think a lot of FF stories are still interesting, despite me knowing so little about this one currently, and to leave them trapped in a format that your typical gamer of today isn't going to immediately jump at is a bit of a shame. So that's why I think Claire is kind of this really good medium, and I really hope FF takes some lessons from Claire, because I think you can make some of that old stuff new again, right? And also, we're now having an ad for, what is this one? Hertz. This is actually hilarious. I really hope that this is not one of the thumbnail option choices. It would be hilarious. Anyway, sorry about that. I'm using like a guest profile so that like anything weird doesn't pop up. But as I'm doing that, obviously I'm realizing now that I'm getting ads. So it would probably have been sensible to just do it on the normal account. But anyway, we'll worry about that next time. Where was I? Right, that's actually the end of FF7. I really did enjoy what we played, but I think I would have preferred. I need something more up to date to be able to enjoy it, the story there more fully. Now on to Yakuza. Now this is the edited video, so I'll just let it run from the start on this one. Lots of my face everywhere. Actually, you know what? We won't. We'll move it a little bit further on. Right. Anyway. Yakuza. So 30 hours in total. 7 videos. Technically 11. So. We did like, basically, long story short, we did, actually, I wrote this all down. I don't know why I'm trying to, like, summarize it. Okay, we completed it in a single week, mostly, apart from, like, 3 or 4 hours we'd played before. But I hadn't intended to play this month. Last month. March. Hadn't intended to play this. However, it became evident that Yakuza Kiwami was leaving Game Pass. I played it just over a year ago for Pride of Game Pass, but I'd never gotten back around to it. Reluctant to lose what progress I'd made, I sped through the game in a week, only finishing it a few days before recording this at that time when I first tried to do it. So I only finished just before I left Game Pass. And I have to say that experience alone was incredibly enjoyable. It was really fun. Finn, a friend of the channel, you guys probably have heard of Finn or seen Finn around if you watch my videos. Finn was the one who suggested to do this, and we turned it into a whole thing. We turned it into Yakuza-thon, and it was really fun. It was like a whole thing. We had like stretch goals and stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Probably will do something like that again, actually. For a game that's a remake of a 2000s game, Yakuza Kiwami feels both new, graphics, combat, general user interface, and old. Gives a retro feeling, the graphics aren't hyper-polished into oblivion, etc. The mix of both makes this game incredibly unique, at least to me, and left me really enjoying wandering around and getting into fights. Again, atypical for me in games. I'm not a big combat person. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind combat games, but I'm generally there for the story, and the combat is kind of secondary to that for me. So getting into combat and actually beating people up was actually really fun. So who knew? The storyline is definitely nothing crazy aside from the bombastic characters themselves, some more curious encounters, as it falls into a lot of older cliches, which is unsurprising considering it's an older game. Even still, the random sub-stories, which are mostly encounters and not overly long, are refreshing and fun for the most part. Some are annoying, and those linked to minigames were largely skipped. Also started playing Yakuza 0, played around 5 hours of that. We jumped basically straight into that. I promised that as one of the stretch goals of the kind of the streams. I think the above points are largely similar for that game too, but might come back to it when I dig a bit deeper. So yeah, we might come back to that on a later episode when we get a little bit more in depth on it, but I have played a little bit of that currently, and I thought it worth mentioning that we did also play some Yakuza 0. Okay, we are now, that's March, that's pretty much March summed up. We are now into the April games, and first up, again, we had some computer issues, so not as many this month as last, like this month just gone, and that was Hollow Knight was the first one video, just under 2 hours. So I'm not typically a fan of sides. Oh wait, we haven't changed video. 1 second. Yakuza 0 is there. You guys can, oh, 1 second. That's CS2 Club. I don't know what that is. I could be promoting anything here. Yakuza 0. See, it's all the same. It's the same as what you just saw, but Kiryu's younger. Kiryu's younger. See, this is what happens when you do stuff live. Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight. So, not typically a fan of side scrollers, but have heard people say that this is quite a fun game on a number of occasions. It's also getting a sequel soon, I believe, which also sweetens the deal for getting into the game. I struggle with combat points again because I'm not typically a follower of the genre, but otherwise it seems challenging enough in a way that's fun and satisfying upon beating a boss. Did get a little frustrated during the segment where you learn your first like magic ability or whatever you want to call it, so to speak, as it felt like you were so to speak. I've already said so to speak. Right, let me start that again. Did get a little frustrated during the segment where you learn your first magic ability, as it felt like you were left to your own devices to suss out what to do, which I get that the game kind of does that anyway. Not typically against that in games, but I do dislike when you're stuck in an area for a given period until you work it out. I don't love that as a concept in gaming. I want to be able to, like, if I don't get something right now, I want to be able to go away and do something else for a little bit and then kind of come back, potentially. Otherwise, the feel of the game is nice too. The premise is also pretty intriguing. It feels distinct while clearly pulling from other tropes, i.e. Souls-esque setting, etc. But yeah, I love the idea of it all being bug themed. I think that was really fun. I think it actually kind of, it's nice to play something that is a little bit more simple graphics wise as well. And I think, when you play all these big AAA games all the time and they're like these hyper realistic graphics, sometimes you want to go back to something that's like, it sounds silly to say, but not as straining on the eyes. Maybe that's just silly, but I really did enjoy the graphics of this one, the visuals of this one, and like the way they use the different bugs and stuff like that as well. And yeah, it was fun. I did enjoy it, despite that it's not usually my genre. So that is that one. That's Hollow Knight, and then Claire Obscure we have next. We do also have another one after Claire, but it's I've ordered them a little bit weirdly here, so we'll move on to Claire Obscure now. We're going to go through, I've just dropped us about halfway through the beginning of the game with our friend Gustav. So, Claire Obscure, 10 videos we've done of Claire Obscure so far, and that's 26 hours played. Visually, narratively, and musically stunning. Every single piece of this game feels perfectly tailored, and as you interact with the world, you only find yourself more intrigued about what's going on. Not in the least because all the aforementioned elements push questions to you about what's happened to this world, who these people are, etc. Combat is thrilling and engaging, bringing turn-based combat into modernity. It proves that turn-based doesn't have to be dead just because people typically enjoy more involved combat systems. A turn-based system can be involved. Despite this, I hate parrying in this game. It's just too unforgiving for my slow reaction speed. Obviously, it's good to have a challenge, but I was definitely frustrated at points. I was just bad at it. That's not a fault of the games, it's just me being bad. But yeah, you can dodge too, but I don't dodge that often. I feel like I've got to be a parry god. I want to learn to be a parry god. I will get that. I did beat a boss yesterday that was only... Oh, what's this? We're now getting an ad for Rover. Owning a dog was a dream come true until I need to start heading back into... Okay, right, we're just going to... Right, good for you. Okay. These ads are like even better. Like what? Where are these ads coming from? Okay. A turn-based system can be involved. Despite this, I hate parrying. Yo, that's where we were. Parrying. I did beat a boss that you can only beat through parrying. Like, not a... Was it a boss? I'd say it was a boss. It was like a side boss yesterday, and I felt very good about that, actually. I did do it. Partly because I had a first strike on Verso that made me... Anyway. There are very few bugs or glitches. I've actually found really none in Claire, but one I did find was actually down to an NVIDIA driver. This might be important for some people who use NVIDIA graphics cards. Chat pointed out that some of the rooms being exceedingly dark was a known problem. After a driver update, this was resolved. I'm very glad that this didn't end up being an actual complaint for the game, because environs like the manor were basically non-traversable without turning up brightness, etc. So yes, that was NVIDIA's fault. Frick you, NVIDIA. You've already caused me a lot of issues with my last computer, and now you're causing me issues again. Thanks, NVIDIA. Also, and this is probably the only time I swear in this video, fuck that jumping puzzle and fuck volleyball. I hated it. I hated them. I hate mini games in games. Just let me play the game. I don't want to play mini games. I don't want to play Gwent. I don't want to play volleyball. I don't want to jump puzzle. I don't want to do the arcade. I don't want to collect trading cards. I don't want to do whatever that freaking card game is in Yakuza. I don't want to do them. Okay? Stop making them link to stories. Okay? That's my opinion. That's like a game critique in general. That's about games in general. Okay? And then we have one more. Bam. Number whatever this is, I don't remember now. Where is it on my list? Prey. One video, 2 hours played. Once again, this isn't my typical genre. I mostly stay away from horror psychological games, as I often don't deal well with the tension pressure element particularly gracefully. Still, the premise of the game was fun, and I like the use of Inception early on, like to kind of get you into what's happening in the game. Also, despite the fact I don't particularly find that suspense factor overly fun, the Typhon being these creatures that can be anywhere and be anything was definitely a great way of making you keep a close eye on your environment and think about what you're doing. Whilst naturally I was very early on in the game, the combat was something that annoyed me. It makes sense that it's somewhat of a make-do situation because Morgan is trying to advance through the station whilst dealing with the Typhon. Still, hitting them with a wrench or equivalent for 2 hours felt a bit clunky to me. Graphically, the game felt cinematic, especially during the open sequence, which we're watching now. And as the station explodes, etc. Yeah, let's go a little bit further in. I think the game... Oh, that's Curry's. Oh, brilliant. I think the environment looks great. I think it looks really sleek, and I actually think it looks like a game that's more modern than... It's 2017. The graphics haven't changed crazy in games since then, but I think it looks pretty modern, even by today's standards. So I really did enjoy it. I thought it was pretty fun, and I would go back to it once I've cleared out my unending backlog of other games. But it was interesting. It was an interesting idea, interesting story. Yeah, again, I'm just not a big horror person. It's just not like horror psychological person. That's not my bag typically. But that is all of the games for the past 2 months of March and April. I hope you guys have enjoyed this live version of Peralta's Played. If you liked this version better, if you thought it was better, sans the ads, I can definitely do something about that. Then let me know and we will do this again. In the meantime, guys, if you like this, let me know. Let me know. I've already said that, but I said it again because I forgot and said it again. If you like this, let me know. And hit that button. And subscribe. And do all those cool things. And I'll see you next time for more Peralta's Played. Whether it's like this or the old format. Let me know which one you like better. Okay. Bye. Gotta hit the button, so I'm gonna have to drop my hand. Bye.